So, you might remember this.
3, 2.
Nice.
I'm happy. I love it.
And you might remember this.
3, 2. Oh, I'm getting wounded, boys.
And this.
3.
Your artwork's so good.
2.
Oh! He's been...
You wounded me!
And this.
3, 2.
That's hilarious.
Well, I said I'm going to challenge these ace grading returns, and this is how it went. Full disclosure, I'm going to talk you through start to finish of who, what, when, where, why. However, all names will be anonymous. This is my honest experience. If you saw this video back in December 2024, you know we had a little ace grading returns from our submission from London Card Show in November 2024. We all know that Matt has his graded card luck, but for me, it's not so much. The 4 cards in questions were JCKWVE, which scored a 9, this was sent in raw. A Moltres, Zapdos and Articuno GX, which scored an 8, this was sent in raw. A Entei, which scored an 8, but this was a crossover from a PSA 9. And a Shiny Lugia, which scored a 7, and this was a cross grade from a PSA 9. Now, you can see why I wasn't happy with these returns and why I challenged it. But first, let me tell you how we got here. So following from that video, I contacted Ace Grading towards the end of December, and they replied with, can you contact us in the new year? They'll get a manager to look into it. Which makes sense. Christmas, busy time of year, and unfortunately Ace recently had that break in around that time, so I get why it was not on the forefront of their mind. But at least I had a reply, and I knew an idea of when to follow it up. Fast forward to January 2025, the 14th of January in fact, I replied to the email asking if this could be looked into now. 3 days later, I received a reply from Ace, a positive reply. They're asking me for the details and for me to send the cards back so they can investigate and see if the cards were graded correctly. And if they found anything wrong, they would rectify the issue, they've rectified the slab grades, the reports, and they would reimburse me the postage, which is a nice little touch on top. A few emails back and forth, there was information asked, questions answered, etc. I don't need to bore you with all those, just, you know, the details, the ins and outs of what cards and where it's coming from, who it is, blah blah blah. Unfortunately, I didn't send these back to around the 14th of February 2025 because I was away and some other bits and pieces were happening. But I did message them again saying, look, I'm going to send them out tomorrow. They were sent raw mail, special delivery next day. They arrived and it was all signed for on the 15th of February 2025. So this is where the customer service started to fail. I contacted them on the 2nd of March and on the 9th of March. I had no replies, no updates, no nothing. I finally got a reply on the 12th of March with the following. So I'm going to read the email, but I'm not going to put it on screen. Personal details and all that, like I said, it's going to be anonymous. But it says, good morning Jack, please accept our sincerest apologies for the delay in communication. We've been working hard to clear a large amount of backlog of work. Now I know and appreciate how busy it is. However, from a business point of view, all it needed was a simple response acknowledgement and to say that they're working on it. Nothing special, nothing major, but to be in the dark for a month or so is not good. And that's just for any business, let alone the one in question right now. What didn't help around this time was all the negative reviews that were surfacing online. I mean, you can just check out Trustpilot to see what's happened over the last, well, the first quarter of the year, I guess. All I'm saying is that communication is key with a business and a service. Frequent updates, more than less, is perfect. Matter of fact, the more the merrier. Even if it is just the same thing, then at least people are kept in the loop, but for my opinion, it just wasn't enough. However, onto the cards, the real reason why we're here. You've seen what they were originally, and I told you what they were originally, and this is how they were returned. Instead of me just reading these out, I will put them on screen, just the part of what was said. So in the same email, JCKWVE, this card received a 9 on centering, so therefore this has dropped the overall grade down from a 10 to a 9. To confirm on centering, for any card to receive a Gem Mint 10 as an overall grade, then the centering must be within the 60 to 40 ratio. Anything below a 10 on the centering subgrade is greater than this ratio and therefore cannot receive an overall 10 grade. That's fine. That card to me wasn't a big problem. It just coming back, I saw it was a 9, 10, 10, 10. So whilst the others going back, let's just double check. No changes there, wasn't my biggest worry. Next card, Moltres, Zapdos and Articuno GX. This card has a small dent that is visible from both the front and rear. We have added an additional point of interest onto the card on the rear to highlight the reverse side of the dent. There is a small raised area on the edge, just up from the rear bottom of the card. Unfortunately, this means the card will still remain as an 8 overall, no change. That card went in raw. I think that was bought from a London Card Show, sealed, brand new. So unfortunately, from what they're saying, it wasn't the best card. It is what it is. I would have liked a 9 on that, but hey, if that's what it is what it is. These next 2 cards are the 2 that I was most concerned about. The Entei, bearing in mind that this was a PSA 9 and it was cross-graded. During our regrade of this card, we've determined that the small defect in the bottom corner is not as severe as originally noted. Therefore, the surface score will be adjusted to an 8, and the overall grade of the card will change from an 8 near mint to a 9 mint. Okay, that's good. I like that. I'm happy about that. All I wanted with the cross grade, I didn't want a higher score or a lower score. I wanted the cross grade from the PSA 9 to the Ace 9, and that's has now thankfully happened because then it goes along with the rest of my personal collection with the other legendary dogs. So happy with that. We'll talk more about these in detail in a minute. So the biggest one and my biggest concern, biggest worry, yeah, this is the one that really got me in the original video. So the Shining Lugia. So this was a PSA 9. I bought this from MCM Comic Con in London, I believe. Again, cross graded from PSA 9, and I just wanted an Ace 9. That's all it needs to be, because I've got the Shining Ho-Oh in an Ace 9. I want to match them up for my personal collection. Simple as that. So, during our regrade of this card, we've determined that the small indentations on the rear of the card do not warrant the surface grade to be a 6. And this has been upgraded to a surface subgrade of a 7. This means that the overall grade will change from a 7 near mint to an 8 near mint. Okay, it's gone up a grade to an 8. However, still not what I wanted. I can't say what I want with grading, that is what it is. So, your cards will now be re-encapsulated with a new label to reflect these changes, and all information and grading reports for them will also be updated on the system. We have notified our IT team to make these changes as quickly as possible for you, but we'll make sure that your 4 cards are dispatched back to you by the end of this week. So this email was sent on the 12th of the 3rd. I actually received the card back on the 13th of the 3rd, so the shipping was top tier. I'm happy with that. So, let's talk about this. With grading, it's obviously a risk, it's a gamble. I can't say what ones I want. Obviously, there was ones I like, so I wanted the PSA 9 Shining Lugia to the Ace 9 Lugia. That would have been great, right? However, it doesn't work like that. But you would think from a reputable company like PSA that a grade needs at PSA 9s, and the price of them it was to buy them at the time, or even worth now, for them to then go down not 1, 2 grades. That's crazy. It is worth noting, if you have watched the other video, if not, it's your first time here, all these cards were submitted at Ace's table at London Card Show November 2024. So the crossover or the cross grades, whatever you want to call them, they were crossed over in their original slabs. So both the Entei and Shining Lugia were crossed over in their PSA 9 slabs. Now, I did raise this when I first inquired. Ace called it a complaint I sent in, but I wasn't complaining, I was just inquiring really. I wasn't even expecting to send the cards back. I just wanted to make sure it was all done as should be. I did raise a question of, like, is it because I sent them in a PSA slab? Are they going to, because they're a competitor, are they going to grade them more harshly? They did respond saying, no, that's not the case. However, I feel like it may have been the case, or it has been some sort of influence on there, only because I've known people to crack their slabs, the PSA ones in, send in maybe a PSA 9 and gain an Ace 10. Even receive back an Ace 9 or something, re-crack that open, send it in and get an Ace 10 again. So I'm not entirely sure how it all works. Do you know what I mean? I don't know the grading process and how in depth it is. It's questionable, isn't it? It was a bit iffy, and it was a bit like, is this right? I don't know. All in all, I'm glad I challenged it. I'm glad I got some questions and answers. I'm glad to see that there was some changes to my grading, especially the last 2. Not the best outcome all round, but definitely an option there if you feel like you've got your cards back and you're very concerned or questioning why they come that bad. And most of us who do grade are very stringent and very, you know, you check out your cards. You're not going to just send anything in because of the time and money it costs to do this, especially the current market and the current state of grading companies in terms of how inundated they are, how backlogged they are, the service with it all. So if you're going to send something, you want to send in something that you know that is going to be worth it. And me cross-grading 2 PSA 9s thinking, okay, PSA, who's been the lead grading company for decades, could have got it wrong, right? I mean, did they? They might have. Who knows at the time? I think it's all circumstantial on which grade you get on the day. However, I also questioned whether or not when I sent them in and Ace cracked open the PSA slabs, did they damage the cards at that time? I don't know. Who knows? That is something we won't know the answer to. However, they've come back. The dispute, the challenge has been completed. There is an outcome, it is done. And I guess without doing it, I wouldn't have known. And I'm glad I do know. And it's good to know you can do that in the future, just in case it happens again. A lot of other people have been in this situation, so they might not like it, but I'd advise you to do what I did. Send an email. Don't need to be complaint, don't need to be shirty with them, don't need to be anything like that. Just send an email and say, look, this is what I've got. I'm a bit concerned around the grading. Can I question it? Can I challenge it? See what they say. For me, the whole issue was the poor customer service in between, the amount of time it took. And like I said, I get it. I know what's going on where at the moment they're bringing in new staff. They're obviously training new people. They're inundated with a backlog. Well, they're not taking submissions at the time of recording this, but they were taking in only little submissions. So I totally get it. However, I just think more communication needs to be key. That's all I'm saying. You can put a post on Instagram once or twice, but they need to be doing it more and more. Even if daily, do you know what I mean? The more people know, the more likely they can be like, okay, cool. That's fine. I get it. I get what's going on. But if it goes a week or 2 without an update, you're kind of like, what are you guys doing? However, I'm more happier with the outcome. I'm happier with the challenge. It is what it is. I have picked up another Shining Lugia in a PSA 9. So the one I've got in the Ace 8 is not the end of the world, and I'll do something with that in the near future. So yeah, let me know. What do you think down below? Have you had this type of situation before? Have you come across this? Have you challenged a grading company yourself? Not just Ace, any of them. What was your experience? I'm interested to know. I haven't really heard of many people challenging, or I haven't really seen it either. I think people just accept their grades and go from there. Well, the option is there to challenge. So let me know your thoughts below. I hope this video has kind of helped or could assist you in some sort of way, because I know there'll be people in my situation or were. The option's there. Anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.